a book change the course of your life?
Yes, if you're ready to listen, and if you're reading and reflecting on the subject matter with an open mind.
How often do you think, I can't take this stress anymore? This job is killing me. I'm successful and financially wealthy. Why am I not fulfilled? I'll be happy when, insert your answer. Do you feel like things just happen to you? Do you feel out of control, like you're not in the driver's seat of your own life?
If you've answered yes to any or all of these questions, this episode is for you. We'll be discussing The Unbeatable Mind by Mark Divine and how it did change our lives.
What is Unbeatable Mind? Author Mark Divine states, the big idea of this book is that you're capable of far more than you think you are. More accomplishment, more productivity, and more success. Divine calls this your 20x factor. This book is about how you can begin to open a channel to that vast potential lying dormant inside of you so that you can achieve your fullest expression of yourself, help those around you, and send positive ripples throughout the world.
So the story of how we came across Unbeatable Mind is probably best told by Andy. So if you want to explain how you stumbled upon it.
Yeah, it was actually maybe not by accident. I think the universe had set the book in front of me. You know, during this part of my life, going back a couple years to 2017, I was traveling a lot for my career across Colorado, but also back and forth across the United States. So I had a lot of downtime where I had the ability to listen to many audiobooks. And at that time, I was listening to several business development books, as well as books like American Sniper, the Chris Kyle story, 13 Hours, the Benghazi story. And this book kept showing up in my Audible suggestions called Unbeatable Mind. And I looked at it, wasn't really interested, but it kept showing up. Every time I logged into Audible, it was there. Month after month, I'd redeem my credit, and there it was in the suggestions. And at some point, I just said to myself, you know what, there's got to be a reason why this book keeps showing up. I mean, other than just the marketing of it, right? And so I decided to investigate it a little bit and downloaded the book. And Casey and I started listening to it on our trips to the mountains and when we had some downtime in camp at night. And what struck me was how wrong I was about my assumptions that this was just another self-help quick fix book to pump you up and then leave you stranded with no direction to go anywhere else. And what this book really was an integrated training program to cover the different domains of human development. And I think at a point I just said, you know, this is really interesting to me, Casey, and I would like to investigate it more and start working on some of these practices and see what happens.
Actually, when you brought up that you wanted to get deeper into this book, I was a little bit excited because I was really interested in the blending of the Eastern and Western cultures. So the breathing practice, visualization, yoga, meditation, and trying all of these practices, that was something I really got excited about. So what do you think it means, Andy, to have an unbeatable mind?
I can only answer for myself. And for me, it's striving to further develop my physical, mental, emotional, intuitional domains, developing awareness of how I show up in the world, developing mental toughness and emotional resilience, strengthening my never quit spirit, and mastery of myself in service to others. So Casey, take us back to about 2018. What was it like starting the Unbeatable Mind practices?
It was pretty eye-opening. It was like seeing a new reality from the perspective of I can control me. I can analyze my life, let go of things, change the stories I've always told myself, like the excuses or saying, well, that's just how I am, or that's how I've always been. And seeing these paradigms fall away was just like a curtain being pulled up for me. It was pretty powerful.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it was kind of exciting and a bit scary. Exciting because I was learning a new way to move through life, and a bit scary because I was learning a new way to move through life. And I had to decide, either I had to take action or stay trapped in how I always thought and how I always reacted and how I always moved through life. The choice was mine. Now that I had brought in awareness to how I showed up in the world, and I wasn't really happy with how I was showing up in the world, I either had to stay that way or make the conscious effort to move forward.
Yeah, it's certainly never easy trying to change or question the way you've done things or the way you've thought about things. One of the big takeaways I got from this book early on that helped me, breath awareness. And we've talked about this before, everyone breathes, but how often do we actually think about how we're breathing and how much that affects how we're thinking and reacting to things? Being able to feel that difference just by taking on a breathing practice in such a short amount of time made such a difference for me. I'm not sure if you felt the same way or if there's something else that stuck out for you.
No, I think right off the bat, one of the first tools and techniques, exercises is a breathing technique, and I hadn't actually ever considered how I was breathing and how that how my breath affects my physiology and my mental state. I also started asking myself, what really matters most in life? I started letting go of the nonsense, the stories and the behaviors that just didn't serve me anymore. And I did this by asking myself the question, what matters most in life? And I was able to begin to filter out the noise, the distractions in my life, and focus on my core values and important relationships. I was able to rid myself of negative stories and limiting negative influences in my life that I didn't even realize that were there.
That's a good point. And that is something that maybe I struggled with a bit and probably still do, to be quite honest, is breaking down those false stories that either we tell ourselves or have been told throughout our lives. So, just as an example, I've never been a runner. And that's something that I still tell myself or catch myself telling me nowadays, that I've never been a runner. Well, the reality of that is I've never trained myself to the point of being able to run in a consistent, healthy way. And realizing that and changing that story to where I can say, well, I can run if I want to. If I train and develop a plan and goals, I totally can be that person. So being able to break out of those habits and those false stories that are either coping mechanisms or just habitual statements, that was a huge piece of the Unbeatable Mind for me.
Another question that came up for me as I was moving through the material was, if I'm not happy and fulfilled, why? What's missing? And I realized that even though I was successful in my career, I wasn't entirely fulfilled. I was working to meet somebody else's definition of success and playing by somebody else's rules, which didn't always align with my core values. Additionally, what this book prompted me to do was take a good hard look at what my stand is, what my core values are, my principles, what I'm passionate about, and what my purpose is in life. And when I started to unravel that mystery, it kind of set me off on a whole new path and way of thinking about how I was moving through life.
Absolutely. Reading this book had a very similar effect for me as far as bringing into focus how I viewed the world, my perspective of myself, other people, and how we all interact and connect in this world.
So, Casey, what would you say you liked most about or took on right away from the material?
I think one of the first things we took on was the breath awareness. And I want to say it was probably one of the more powerful things as well, because when we started doing the breathing practices and being more aware of our breath and how it affects our body, it really started to clear my mind and get rid of some of the thoughts that were just bouncing around like crazy in there. And there was this feeling of content and peace and quiet. That doesn't always happen, but it's the doorway to being able to control your mind a little bit more and actually have that peace and quiet and contentment and balance.
Yeah, I think with breath awareness, it's so powerful because as humans we're pre-wired to the negative, and we always have this negative mental chatter going on in the back of our minds. The Buddhists call it monkey mind, where your thoughts are pretty much scattered, and a lot of people have a really hard time focusing on one thing or what's right in front of them. And when you start your breath awareness practice, you're able to, after some time, to quiet that monkey mind down and to be able to focus on just one thing, aligning, your physiology and your mental state. And that is such a powerful thing to actually be able to quiet the monkey mind and take control of your thinking.
Absolutely. And not only control, but it helps you observe what you're thinking and certain patterns that may be coming up. And it gives you a whole different way of viewing your life and how you're walking through it.
Sometimes sleepwalking through it.
Yeah.
Another really powerful practice that I hadn't really ever considered was a morning practice. The first premise of of Unbeatable Mind, is to win in your mind before stepping onto your battlefield of life each day. And the morning practice is just a set of tactics and tools and actions that you take every single morning to set yourself up for success. And doing that, let me start that whole thing over again. That was horrible. So the first premise of Unbeatable Mind is, win in your mind before stepping onto your battlefield of life each day. And one of the practices we picked up pretty early on, which had just enormous benefit for us, was the morning practice. And it's just a set of actions that you take each morning to prime your day for success. And I'm not going to go in depth into each one of those. He covers some suggestions in the book, and we were able to tailor it a little bit to match our needs and our lifestyle. But it was so powerful, clearing my mind each day and planning the day.
Oh, yeah, I agree. The morning practice was kind of the beginning of everything for us. It was when we incorporated the breathing practices, we started working in meditation and movement. And when we started doing that regularly, we really did start to see a lot of positive changes. And it really was incredible just by adding in this small piece of practice every morning. And when we don't do it, or if we have a day we get up and something happens, we don't end up doing it, I can feel the difference. I can see it in myself through the day, how I react to things, and I'm just not as calm and in control as I would be if we had prepared for the day, like the morning practice.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's important to note, though, at this point in our journey, I was still a little bit skeptical But I thought to myself, well, what I've been doing hasn't been working out real well for me. So what do I have to lose? I'm just going to go ahead and try this, and I'm going to give it my best effort for 30 days. And here we are 3 years later, and we do our morning practice nearly every single day, whether we're at home or we're on the road traveling and adventuring. Some version of it is always part of our morning.
So you did say there was a little skepticism kind of at the beginning. At what point or what part of the book stuck out for you to make you think this was the right path?
Yeah, I think some of my skepticism derived from the fact that I wasn't really in the mindset of Eastern philosophy and Eastern practices merging with Western philosophy and psychology and workouts. Um, I hadn't really bought into that quite yet. However, at about that 30-day mark, that's when I really started to see a lot of the benefits. I started seeing changes in myself. And here's, I think, the benefit for us as a married couple is that we were practicing these things together. We were doing these practices together, and we started seeing changes within each other that I also think sparked more excitement in the drive to keep going after and learning more and doing more within the framework of the Unbeatable Mind practice.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just that feeling of curiosity and that excitement of learning more, digging deeper, and not only that, but sharing it with someone and supporting someone and us having each other kind of to bounce ideas off of and ask questions. And it was a really amazing experience and still is. But I also felt like at some point, this felt like it was filling a missing piece in my life that I didn't realize I was looking for. And whether that was the theories or the practices or just learning more about myself, it somehow all came together for me.
Yeah, I for my whole life I've been pretty good at working in one of the domains, maybe two of them at the same time. Usually physical, so working out, weight training, running, hiking, mountaineering, and perhaps even at the same time working on the mental domain of learning new things. But I always had a hard time kind of pulling it all together. My monkey mind, going back to that monkey mind, just didn't allow me the space and the time to really analyze and think about what I was doing and what I really wanted to be doing and how I could get to be that person that I wanted to be. And the morning practice and the breath awareness practices really helped me calm down my mind and allowed me that space to really think about these different domains and how I could better show up and incorporate them into my daily activities. And when I came to that realization that this is actually the program that I was looking for, I just didn't realize I was looking for it. It was an epiphany. It was eye-opening. It was like magic.
I think that's a good way to describe it, actually. And so, fast forward a little bit, thinking back from when you first picked up the book to now, what changes can you attribute to the Unbeatable Mind in your life?
Yeah, well, there's so many. So it's been a really fun journey so far, right? And it is a journey. You don't ever actually get to the end of the journey. One way to describe it is, this is a process of self mastery And even though that term is way overused today in so many different ways, um, I think that best defines what this has been for me. But within that journey of self mastery, there is no there. It's continuous, and that's what's one of the things that's exciting to me is I'm always learning new things about myself, about the world, about the people I interact with. Um, and I think the biggest changes for me came when I came to the realization that I was on the wrong path in my life. You know, even though I worked for a really great company and I was making pretty decent money, and we were living kind of the lifestyle that we thought we wanted to live, there was a lot that was missing. So about a little over a year ago, I decided to leave my career and set off on a whole new path, to reinvent Fierce Planet Adventures, which I had started as a meetup group back in 2008. And it went on for about a year and a half until I got really sick with Lyme disease and just couldn't carry on anymore. Um, so that was a big pivot in my life, but it also got us to think about, hey, why don't we do something more challenging? I mean, we're already going to the mountains and hike and mountaineer and backpack. Why don't we take on a Spartan race? But not just any Spartan race. Let's go take on the mountain series up in Breckenridge, Colorado, at altitude. And wow, was that a fun experience. I had so much fun with that one Spartan sprint race, which, they claim it's like 3 miles, but, it's really, that one was more like 4 and a couple thousand feet of elevation gained. So it was challenging, right? It took me way out of my comfort zone, and it was wonderful. Additionally, though, I really changed the way I started thinking about my life and what information that I was bringing into myself, that affected how I was thinking and showing up. And, I think a good example of that was, back before the last presidential election, the Clinton-Trump election, I was following so many like-minded people on social media platforms that I felt like I was living in an echo chamber. And it wasn't till after the election that I woke up and realized that I'm just hearing the same things that I was thinking regurgitated right back at me. And I'm really not learning anything new. And my mind isn't open to new ideas and new possibilities. And I was definitely not respecting other people's points of view. No, I wasn't actively engaged in bashing and flaming people online, but it wasn't very powerful, right? And so I changed what information I was bringing in or allowing into my mind. And part of that process was also, kind of just maybe not entirely eliminating big, national network news, but scaling it back to a point where I wasn't always feeling agitated and upset and fearful, perhaps, of what was going on in the country. I realized that what was coming out of my mouth was a direct reflection of what I was letting into my brain. And it wasn't at all kind or peaceful or powerful. It was all very negative. So that was another big change for me. That also got me thinking about how I was showing up and interacting with the people in my life, and didn't quite care for what I saw. And I realized I had to make a change, and I did. Now, I mentioned earlier that there is no there. It's a continuous process. And, I'm not immune to the creep of the incessant negative drumbeat of the national news, but I'm much more able to snap out of that very quickly and redirect my thinking to a more positive state. So that is just huge.
Absolutely. Another one of the changes or things that we took on after reading the book was actually taking on the Unbeatable Mind Foundations course. And so we started with a book, which led into the foundation practices, which has opened up just a whole nother world for us, at least for me. But when you were talking about the echo chamber, and Facebook, I think, is another great example where I've pretty much noticed some big changes in myself. When you're scrolling and reading through and feeling yourself getting agitated or offended, even, it's a good time to learn something about yourself. And basically, I'll stop and say, so what is it about this that I'm taking offense to or getting upset over? Is this a reflection of myself or something I haven't dealt with within myself that I'm projecting on someone else? So you can see what direction you can really take it as far as thinking about your thinking and really trying to understand what your body is telling you as far as your emotions, your feelings, those little triggers that you notice when somebody says something and you get a reaction. These are all things these programs have just helped put into a better perspective as far as you can control these things and understand them and really change the way you react and observe and interact in the world.
Yeah, Casey, you mentioned the Unbeatable Mind Foundation's online course. And, we had listened to the book. We had even kind of read the book and highlighted a lot of really important stuff for us throughout the book. And we started investigating more about what Unbeatable Mind had to offer as far as training goes. And we came upon the Foundations online course, which, if the book is just the tip of the iceberg, then the Foundations course is the 100 feet below the tip, right? And you can go so deep and wide into these practices and accelerate your growth so much faster that, if we hadn't taken on the Foundations program, the Foundations course, we probably wouldn't have seen as much development as we did.
Absolutely, I would agree there. And putting these practices into practice is what really made a big difference. Another great example of that is we actually went to the Unbeatable Mind experience, which is basically a live event where you go learn and pretty much just absorb yourself into the learnings of the Unbeatable Mind. And being able to feel the difference of reading the material, absorbing it, and understanding it versus actually putting it to practice and feeling it was just a world of difference. And I think that's a good point to touch on is the first time you feel or experience one of the powerful insights or epiphanies, if you will, while doing these practices is just a spark to something bigger. It's like lighting a flame or maybe even an explosion of curiosity and just wanting to learn more and do more, dig deeper, and just get better and better.
There's a real difference between intellectual understanding of the material and actually putting it into practice. That connection that you get from going to the live experience or taking part in the Unbeatable Mind experience it's really, it's where the theory meets action. And I think, we did a really good job with many of the tools. The morning practice, is still a real powerful part of our day. But it wasn't until we could actually get into that environment and we started really working the different practices, in a physical way, that I was able to bring it all together, without going too deep into the information. one of the things that is taught in Unbeatable Mind, whether it's the book or the foundations, is the big four skills of mental toughness. And I had this great understanding, theoretical understanding of what it meant to be mentally tough and what the different aspects of that are. But I really didn't, not until we actually started physically moving and putting that theory into practice. I think also, like a lot of guys, when Mark suggests journaling, as a way to identify patterns and behaviors and ways of thinking, I was pretty resistant. I'm like, journaling, what? That's crazy. It's all right here. It's all in my head. I ain't got time for that, right? Boy, was I wrong. So along the way, I finally decided to say, what the heck? What do I have to lose? And I started actually writing down my thoughts and my feelings and how I was moving through life. And just getting it out of my head and onto the paper was quite an interesting exercise in self-realization. And it also helped me make the changes that I needed to make, because instead of internalizing it, it was out there on the page and I could actually track it instead of just kind of feeling it, right? And there's nothing wrong with feeling it unless you don't take action.
Absolutely. Journaling's another one of those that I maybe haven't struggled with the actual practice, maybe the consistency. But it has been extremely powerful in, like you were saying, identifying patterns and behaviors or patterns in thinking. And the mind is such a powerful tool that there were times I made progress, but it was so subtle, I didn't even realize it until I was going back and reading some of my journal entries. And I noticed some of my wording was changing. It was going from places of being somewhat negative to more positive. Like, instead of saying or asking, why can't I do this? The verbiage was changing to, what can I do to be better so that I can? Or how can I approach this differently? So you can see the changes on the paper. And the other side of that is, once you can identify certain patterns in behavior or thinking and make yourself aware of it, you can take action to change it. To your point, if you're aware that it's happening, then you can take the steps to change. But that's kind of the first step, is knowing what you need to do.
And I think that one of the key points I started out journaling by typing it out on my computer. And at some point I transitioned to handwriting, and just the experience of actually writing it out was cathartic. It accelerated. I didn't have to necessarily think about the keys I was hitting on the keyboard. It just flowed for me.
Yeah, writing, especially pen to paper, has always been a very relaxing practice for myself as well. A feeling that I don't get when I'm actually typing on a computer. So I actually did the same thing. I was taking notes on my little Kindle digitally and actually transitioned to a paper and pen journal, and it has made a huge difference. Something we haven't touched on yet that I think is pretty exciting. Andy just became an Unbeatable Mind coach. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I just wrapped up my certification in licensing to become an Unbeatable Mind coach. So I'm now a certified licensed coach. And I'm pretty excited about this. I feel that the benefit that I've received from the book, the online course, the in-person experience was just so powerful, so life-changing. I've shared a bit about our journey here so far. The trajectory of my life changed. I changed my career. I made a pivot there. We took up obstacle course racing with Spartan Racing, and we just love that. And that's something I wouldn't have done if it hadn't been for Unbeatable Mind. We've pretty much gone and sold all of our belongings and closed up our house in our home in Colorado. And, we're traveling across the country and just adventuring our way around and living life the way we want to live it. And I attribute these decisions, these changes, to the spark that was created by Unbeatable Mind. And if I didn't really believe in it strongly, I wouldn't have spent a whole year of my life becoming a certified coach. This, for me, this program was powerful and attractive because it wasn't just another quick hit of motivation or a self-help book that left me motivated on Friday and then wondering what to do come Monday morning at work. It's life altering. It's daily practices. It's metacognition, thinking about your thinking, changing the way you show up in the world in a very positive way, taking on bigger challenges and goals in your life that perhaps you even thought, that I thought at the time, were just, out of reach, unattainable. And I was wrong. And I'm glad I was, because if I hadn't been wrong, I wouldn't have opened my mind to this possibility and taken on this new challenge. And I'm really excited to be able to help others discover what they're passionate about in life, what they're principled about in life, uncovering how they show up in life and how they can maybe show up better and stronger in life, 20xing, their life with, deep meaning and purpose. And I'm really excited to be able to help folks with that.
It's very exciting to be able to share this message and be a part of something that is focused on service to others. It's developing world-centric leaders. It's having people try to show up at their best so that they can positively affect the people around them. So bringing more awareness and positivity into the world, I absolutely can get behind that. And I'm so excited, like you said, to be able to share that with others and help people figure out what sparks their passion in life.
If any part of our story, any part of our journey and our experience with Unbeatable Mind has sparked a little bit of curiosity in you and you want to learn more about our journey or Unbeatable Mind, we're going to put some links in the show notes. Also, feel free to reach out to me. If I can't answer the question for you, I'll put you in touch with somebody who can. So you read the book, you sign up and you move through the foundations program online. Also consider a coach. And the reason why I say that is this program is wonderful and it can really change and accelerate your growth in life. However, if you don't have somebody to hold you accountable, to help you move through this process, to move through the information, you may find yourself getting stuck along the way, maybe losing focus. And that's one of the powerful benefits of having a coach, is having somebody who's along on the journey with you, who's just a few steps ahead of you, who's already experienced the place that you're at with the program and can help guide you and hold you accountable to making the big changes that you're after. All right, friends, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great week and live fiercely. Be unbeatable.